a video on the wild yeast that I've collected. So I accidentally killed, or maybe it just died, my other wild yeast that I collected. It's pretty straightforward. What you do is you get some older grapes, don't wash them, squish them up, put them in a jar like that, put a cover over them with an elastic band like that for a few days, and leave them, and then they start to ferment and go fizzy, which they have done here. And I kind of, it takes about 3 or 4 days, depending on the time of year, depending on how much yeast, natural yeast, is already on the grapes, for them to start fermenting and producing, and the yeast not producing yeast because the yeast is already there, but the yeast to properly start growing and bubbling and things, and then you can ferment other kind of things. So it was a bit annoying that I'd allowed my other yeast to die. I wasn't really sad. I once killed my sourdough starter and I was devastated. It was just awful. I kept it alive for a year and it just didn't. It just something happened to it. I think it either started producing too much alcohol and killed the yeast in it, or some other bacteria got into it and killed the yeast in there. But anyway, but the wild yeast, this wild yeast for fermenting things, I wasn't that. I was more annoyed than unhappy and sad about it. So I didn't want that to happen again. So what I did, I've made some more. I made 2 batches because this one seemed to take quite a while to get going. And then I kind of thought, well, what I'll do is I'll freeze some, and then I've got some in the freezer as like a backup plan, which will also kind of serve as the purpose of, can we actually freeze the wild yeast and keep it alive, or not keep it alive and slow it's replicating itself, reproducing itself, living in the freezer. Because, well, I remember, I make my own yogurt, and I save some of the yogurt whey that I strain out of the yogurt to make it thicker. I save some of it and I freeze it, and that is the starter that I use to make my own yogurt, and I freeze it. So the yogurt I make lasts me about 2.5 weeks, something like that. I make about 4 litres turn about 4 litres, about 5 litres of milk into yogurt, and I always keep the whey back, some of the whey back after I've strained it out of it, and I freeze that whey, and then that stays in the freezer for a couple of weeks, and then I use that whey to make the next batch of yogurt. I suppose I could take some of my yogurt from the yogurt that I make and then turn that into new yogurt, but I just kind of think it's just easier to just have some backup whey with the bacteria in it to make the yogurt in the freezer, in case anything happens to my yogurt. But anyway, so let's freeze some of this this wild yeast, and then we've got some in the freezer, and then we'll take it out in a few months' time, or we'll take some of it out in a few months' time, and we'll see if we can ferment something with it. So, and then I'll also hopefully I'll keep the yeast alive as well, this wild yeast. So we'll mix them up. We'll take some of that out. It'll probably be the same yeast. I can't imagine it won't be. So put that in there like that, and then there'll be enough fruit in there to keep it alive. That's fine. So then we'll put that lid on tight, and then we'll freeze that. We'll add that into there. If that dies in a couple of days, I'll know that it's 2 different types of yeast, and they've gone to war, and they've killed each other. But anyway, just move that around, and then back on with not back on with the cloth. Then we just want a lid, because we know it's working. We know that's fermenting now, so we can just put a loose lid on it, a clean lid, just loosely like that, so it can breathe, and then that can go in the fridge, and then for the next fermenting project, and that'll go in the freezer, and we'll pull it out in a couple of months' time to see if it's still alive. So it'll probably be in this next part of the video, which is now. So it's been a couple of months, maybe 3, maybe 4 months since I put these in the freezer. The home cultured yeast has died in the freezer, so that's a bit disappointing, but not to worry. So this is champagne yeast. It's not got a sell-by date on it, so we'll see if this has survived the freezing process. And something else I was just in my mind, and I kind of thought I'll just have a go. Let's have a go at see if we can ferment coffee. Why not, eh? It might be a bit of fun. We'll see if the champagne yeast works. So I need some sugar, I need some coffee, I need the yeast, and I've got a bottle that I'm going to that I've sterilised. So we need to put some coffee in first, and then we need a little bit of sugar. So what we're going to put in 2 teaspoons of sugar. Two teaspoons, about right. I don't think that'll be too much. We'll find out, won't we? And then we'll give that just a sloosh down with a bit more coffee. And then we better give it a mix up. So the coffee's sweet, and then we'll put some yeast in. No, then we'll put a bit more coffee in. I'm just checking it up off camera. So the sugar melts into the coffee, and then a bit more coffee in case I put too much sugar in, and then a bit more coffee. It's cold, is this coffee? And then some of the champagne yeast, and then a bit more coffee just to kind of swirl everything down so that into the, if it's wet, it's just going to catch on the side of the funnel. Seal that back up. If it works, I might just be able to use it for something else, or freeze it again, and then just a bit of coffee just to swirl everything down with, leaving a semi-substantial gap. Then I'm going to use a balloon lock. So I've got some proper air locks for fermenting, but balloons work just as well. So what you do is you just put a balloon over the top like that, and squeeze out the air, and then what will happen is, as it ferments, the balloon will inflate, and you'll know that its fermentation has started. And then we just get a pin once it's inflated, and we'll just put a pinprick in it, and then it'll what they call it, the gas can then escape, and then the gas can escape, and it won't ping the balloon off. But it just works. So what happens is the pressure inside stops any air from getting in, because there's pressure built up, and it acts as a valve, but it won't explode because you've put a pinprick in the balloon, and the excess gas can escape once it reaches a certain pressure on the inside. So depending on the time of year, it normally takes about a day, 2 days for champagne yeast to get going. So then we'll see. So, and then I'll just ferment it as long as possible. Just my thoughts were, I mean, obviously there's coffee liqueurs, but they're not fermented coffee. They're just like alcohol with coffee put into them. Whereas these are actually fermenting coffee. Just out of interest, someone else will have done it. I've never come across a video, but I've never looked, because I'd much rather find out myself. So it's only been a couple of hours, and it's already starting to ferment, and I can't see any bubbles rising, but there was lots of foam gathering there, so it's certainly starting to ferment. So pin just into the balloon, sure that went in. I'm sure that went in. Well, it'll just ping off. Let's put another one in. Yeah, that went in. I have every confidence. It'll be fine. It'll just ping off. If it, what we call it, if there isn't a hole in it, but it'll be fine. So that's probably going to take quite a while to ferment, but we can ferment coffee, which is interesting. So therefore, right, so we can, if it ferments, we can turn it into like a fizzy pop, like a fizzy soda, if you're in America. So like a fermented drink, like that's not non-alcoholic. We can turn it into an alcohol by fermenting it for longer, and then if it ferments into an alcohol, then we can turn it into a vinegar. All quite interesting, to say the least. I don't think there'll be another video after it's finished fermenting, rather than, because it might take 2 months, so I might as well make the video because it's a bit of a side video, and then it'll and then the results of the fermenting will kind of will be, you know, soon afterwards of this video. But I don't want to. Otherwise, I just end up with like so many videos. Yeah, I can see the bubbles rising. Otherwise, I just end up with so many unfinished videos on my computer, and I find it a bit annoying. So I'd rather just post them and then post a part 2 a little bit later on. But there we go. It works, and the freezing process did not kill the champagne yeast. There we go. Success.